Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Just Guitars. My name is Rodney Wittenberg,
My name is Tim Henke.
and today we're going to look into Taylor guitars.
It all began in 1965 when a kid that lived in San Diego, a 9-year-old kid named Bob Taylor, he got himself a guitar, and it was one of those, one of those plywood type, low end, really inexpensive guitars that were, very prevalent in the guitar world back then. And they had it had a painted on like red and black sunburst, and the binding was like white paint around the edges.
Maybe
and
you
they
got it
had
from Sears or something?
yeah, I guess Sears type guitar. I mean, I basically it was the Discourager model, and lots of manufacturers made the Discourager model. Harmony made a particularly fine example of the Discourager model back then. The ones that have like the strings are at least a quarter of an inch off the fingerboard, and that nobody can really play them.
Nobody can play an F chord.
And nobody can. It's very discouraging. Hence the name, Discourager. As little Bobby Taylor struggled to play this guitar, he scuffed the painted on binding off the sides, and apparently that really bothered him. And he's like, "Oh, I have to make it look good again." So, he took out his white Testors model paint, and he started trying to paint the binding back on the guitar. And it turned out to be, apparently it was an abysmal failure, and he really disliked the results. So he scraped or sanded or scuffed off whatever he had done. And then he discovered the wonders of masking tape, and he tried to mask it off. And then he went and he did the same thing, but, not using the correct type of masking tape. The paint wicked itself under the tape, the crepe tape, and wicked itself under, and he pulled the tape off, and his result was little better than when he had not used the tape. So you see where this is going, where his mind was. And at the end of his third attempt, apparently, according to him, it was just about as good as it was when he started to try to fix it. But and then by the time he was in high school, he started building guitars. And when he graduated from high school, he had already built 3 guitars, which was pretty impressive for a high schooler. So that was kind of what started Bob Taylor on the path to building guitars. And in his senior year of high school, there are many people to thank for the origin of Taylor guitars, but we really have to thank Bob Taylor's dad. Because when Bob in his senior year of high school told his parents that he was not going to go to college, that he was going to build guitars. He really wanted to build guitars, and his mom panicked. Oh my God, you're going to be a pauper for the rest of your life. You can't build guitars. And she's like telling his dad, will you say something? Will you say something to him? And apparently the story goes, Dad put down the newspaper and said, let the kid do what he wants. And when he was in high school, Bob would go and hang out at this place, and it was a luthier shop, and it was it was like this hippie craft artisan type place where people build guitars. And this is where Bob Taylor realized, people really can build guitars and sell them. And the people that were coming in and out of the shop, there was this guy named, what was his name? Greg Deering, from Deering Banjos.
Yeah.
He was hanging out there. Larry Breedlove. So it was kind of like a little bit of this, it was a little bit of this Ladies of the Canyon kind of thing with guitar building, and they would have big parties and stuff like that. And Sam Radding recognized that Bob Taylor had some talent, and he ended up hiring him out of high school to work on guitars and build guitars. And Bob was just like full bore. He was going to work. He was going to build guitars. That's what he was going to do. And the other people that kind of worked there were like, hey man, I'm going to go surfing I'm quitting early. I'm going to go surfing. Or, even Sam Radding, the owner, would leave for, a week to go camping or whatever. But Bob Taylor just worked. I mean, he just built damn guitars.
A man on a mission.
It's what he was. And apparently he was really fast. Eventually in 1974, Sam Radding decided that he no longer wanted to build guitars full time. He wanted to do something else. So he wanted to sell the business, and there was another employee there named Kurt Listug. Hope I'm saying his name right. And Steve Schwemmer, and Bob Taylor. The three of them were good friends, but Kurt and Steve decided they were gonna buy the American Dream. That was the name of the shop, by the way. It was called the American Dream, and they were going to buy the American Dream Guitar Works. And I think Kurt's dad helped him write up a business plan and this, that, and the other thing. And they needed a loan from their parents. I mean, these were like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids, basically. So, and I think Kurt's father said to him, well, you and Steve are going to buy the American Dream Guitar Shop. Do either of you know how to build guitars? Is there anybody like in your partnership here that actually knows how to build a guitar? And they thought, maybe we should get Bob. Maybe we could get Bob on board. So they offered Bob, a three-way partnership. And, Bob had to borrow money from, I think, his grandfather or whatever it is. And this is one of those things where I'm really nervous because I might get the story wrong. Mm-hmm. And if I get the story a little bit wrong about something Leo Fender might have said, or, what Christian Frederick Martin thought or whatever, like, no one's going to go back and ask them, But everybody in this story
is still alive.
They're all still alive. They're all amongst us. They may see this, and they may go, God, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So I don't know. That could happen. So anyway, they were not allowed to keep the name American Dream because Greg, Sam's brother, that was not included in the sale. And I think Greg started another music store, and Sam Radding was working with the Taylor crew for a brief time. However, they weren't allowed to keep the phone number either. And Greg had it go to, his new music, he had it forwarded to his new music store. And Bob and Kurt and Steve got really pissed off at Sam because he did that because, they lost they lost the name, they lost the phone number, but here they were, they had this business, and now we're, what are we going to call it? At first they tried, I think it was like Westland Music, something like that. They thought it would sound like a big corporate conglomerate. But then they wondered if that wouldn't work, and then they tried out their last names, and Schwemmer didn't work, and Listug sounded like a drum kit, apparently, so they couldn't go with that. So they went with Taylor. So even though Bob at that point was the minority partner, he had the coolest sounding name, so it became Taylor Guitars. And so it was Taylor Westland Music, and eventually at some point it just got dropped and became it became just Taylor. I think for briefly it was Taylor and Listug, but everybody just called it Taylor. That was the birth of Taylor Guitars in 1974. But one of the most interesting things that occurred to me in doing my research is a lot of the criticism, if you will, regarding Taylor guitars. And the thing that makes Taylor guitars so damn cool is the way that they're built. They are not built in the traditional luthier style. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're built by robot." Well, they're not really built by robots. They have a lot of the production process automated in order to achieve a level of quality control and consistency that you don't see with more traditional styles of guitar making. So, but this didn't come from nowhere. You could have taken a luthier from the 19th century and, dropped him into a guitar shop in the late 20th century, or a luthier shop, or even a guitar factory. They would feel right at home, and many of the power tools they would see were just like, oh, well, those are motorized versions of things that we would run by hand. But this was an evolution. This did not come about immediately. When Taylor first started, they were, building guitars in the traditional manner. However, Bob also realized that because this was the 1970s that they were getting started, and they had to compete with, everybody who was, going to the NAMM, other guitar makers going to the NAMM show, big guitar companies, Gibson, Martin, Guild. Those companies had 100 years on them. It was okay for them to be building guitars in the traditional manner, and if sales slowed down, or you didn't have enough money to cash your own paycheck that week, that didn't happen at Gibson. It didn't really matter. They could continue to make guitars and cut braces by hand and things like that. That Bob Taylor didn't have that luxury. At that point in time, they had a handful of employees, and they were trying to make guitars, and Bob happened to be, he was a guy that really tried to solve problems and tried to come up with new ways of doing things because he had to. So, he came up with a way of cutting all of the braces at the same time. Why not? It was just spacers with multiple blades on a table saw, but that way you could push a single piece of spruce through the saw blade and you get all your braces sliced instead of going one at a time, because they had to. The reason that he learned how to build guitars faster is because he had gotten a guitar all done. It had to be delivered, like by the end of the week or something along those lines. And it was for, I don't remember what player it was for, but it was somebody of some notoriety. And, they're this young, budding, builder, and he's got to get this guitar. He gets it in the spray booth, he drops it, he cracks the top, he breaks it. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? I don't know however many days I am from this deadline. I can't really fix this. I have to rebuild the guitar. So he came up with ways of doing it quicker simply because he had to, and that influenced the direction of which way the company went. The famous bolt-on neck. Sam Radding had actually experimented with a bolt-on neck before Bob Taylor. Back in 1970, he built a travel guitar, and the neck was held on with wing nuts. But that information really wasn't shared with Bob Taylor. It was just that Sam had done it, and later on, after the fact, he was like, "Oh yeah, I had done that. I might have been onto something." But Sam went surfing, and Bob built guitars. I'm only kidding. No offense to you, Sam. It's just one of those things. You gotta do that. My God. He was doing a neck reset on a Guild. Now, people can say all they want that Taylors are made by robots or this, that, or the other thing. Bob Taylor is absolutely 100% a luthier. And I can tell you that he's a luthier because the reason he came up with the idea of the bolt-on neck is because he had to do a neck reset on a Guild as a repair. And he just looked at that dovetail joint and all that glue in there, And there's a lot of glue in Guild guitar necks, I can tell you. And he thought, this is just not the best, most efficient way of doing it. This is a really great thing for cabinet makers and things like that. And mind you, when you're doing cabinet making, you're doing dovetails on drawers and things like that. They're not blind dovetails. You can see them. But a dovetail guitar neck joint it's a blind dovetail. It's very hard to see. And as anybody that's ever done it knows, that it's a refitting and resetting a neck is a lengthy process. You get faster at it the more you do it. But I mean, even to figure out exactly where it's making contact, you have to wrap a little piece of carbon paper around the joint and bop it in there and bop it back out and see where it's rubbing and where it's not rubbing and sand it a little bit. It's tedious. It's time consuming. And then when you get it all done and you get your angle perfect and you clamp it up, you got to clamp it at least overnight and you got to let it sit for 24 hours. And guess what happens sometimes? No matter how careful you are, when you clamp it in, the neck can shift. So all of that wonderful work you did means you unglue it and you start over again. And Bob Taylor didn't have time for that. So he thought, well, I got to repair this guy's guild. He's got a gig in 2 days. And you know what? I'm going to use threaded inserts and I'm going to use bolts and I'm going to bolt it on. And he did. He removed the dovetail, filled it in, drilled holes, put threaded inserts in it, bolted the neck on. It stayed. It sounded fine. And he told the guy, listen, this is what I did. I hope you don't mind. And the client was happy. He was like, no, it's great. Works out great. Neck's on it. Good. And that's how the bolt-on neck was born. It was born out of necessity. It was born out of an economic reality of, I've got to get this thing out the door. Further economic realities of Taylor, one of the things you may not know about them, is they did not start actually making money until the 1990s. They didn't make money until the 1990s. Not really. They did not move out of their little shop in Lemon Grove. I believe it was somewhere between 1988 and 1990.
Yeah, I know by the late 70s there were famous people.
There were famous people. There's a photograph, a rather famous photograph of Neil Young playing a 12-string 855, a Taylor 855. They were making no money. They were making no money in part because they had signed in order to get their guitars into music stores and things like that. Kurt Listig, he literally would load up his Volvo with Taylor guitars and drive around to various music stores all over the country, take them out of the back of the Volvo station wagon, show them, try and get orders, et cetera, et cetera. This was what they were doing. In the late 70s, they had a booth at the NAMM show right across from Dean Guitars, but except their booth was like, they had like two concrete pillars in the middle of their booth, and they had their carpet like spread out. They had their whole booth laid out, whatever size it was supposed to be, but they didn't tell them it was concrete pillars, and they had to cut their carpets up and things like that, and they put their guitars on display. But then there was Dean Guitars right across the aisle from them. I don't know if you guys remember back in that time, but Dean's marketing strategy was very scantily clad women.
Yes.
And people would go by, hey, Taylor, they make killer 12 strings. Wow, Dean Guitars, and it was just like, it was a struggle. It really was a struggle for these guys.
So what's different or unique about the Taylor guitar, and why did musicians gravitate toward it?
One of the things that's very unique about the Taylor guitar, there's two things, really. One of them is the neck, not just because of the fact that it's bolted on, but because it's very slim and it's very playable. And the slim, playable neck came about because of the fact that when Bob Taylor first started working at American Dream, making guitars, at the time, those guitars were shaped with The neck was shaped with spoke shaves and files and by hand, basically. You did it with the same tools that they were using in the 19th century. And he really didn't know, he wasn't very experienced at it, so he inadvertently made his necks very, with a somewhat flatter back. They were flatter, they were slimmer, and they tended to be a tad wider, but players loved them. The other thing that is very different about Taylor guitars, and one of the things that I actually believe that Taylor Guitars is responsible for, is the intonation and the playability of getting the neck angles exactly right and getting everything just so. And this is no I don't want to say anything bad about any other guitar company. It's just that guitars really weren't built that way. I mean, again, they were, even if you pick up old guitars from the 1930s and stuff, and the neck angles are, they're never quite right.
But what it sounds like Taylor was able to do is make the same guitar.
Yes,
over and over again.
consistency.
Yeah.
One time, and again, that was another thing that was brought about by necessity. There was a request for him to build 2 identical guitars for this one act. So Bob was like, okay, I'm going to build 2 identical guitars. I'm going to make all the pieces out of these guitars out of the same wood. Not the same species of wood. I'm going to make it out of the same blank, the same logs, if you will. Okay, they weren't necessarily logs, but the same blanks. He did everything he could to make it identical, but yet, even though they get 2 guitars, to look at them, hold them up side by side, yeah, they look identical. They weren't identical. They didn't play identically. They didn't sound identically because, the neck angle on one was a little slightly different, or, there were just small variations because they were hand built. The necks were hand fitted, which is a wonderful thing. However, it requires a certain level of person to do that consistently time after time after time and get it right, which is why when you'll go to the Martin factory and you watch the woman there, it was a woman at the time, both times that I saw it, watch this woman fitting a neck. She is so amazingly good at it, but that is a honed muscle memory that is really difficult to duplicate. So when that person moves on, they have to either train somebody and then they have to practice that same skill, and that's all they're doing all day long is fitting the necks. That's not really practical. When your entire company is in a 1,500 square foot workshop, and you've got one guy who's doubling between spraying finishes and running out and loading up his Volvo and to take it around to try and sell guitars. So you needed consistency. And he realized that these 2 guitars, although they looked identical, they were not identical. What do I do? How do I change the production process to make these things absolutely identical? It takes you 20 minutes to reset the neck on a Taylor guitar, and it's absolutely perfect where it has to be. So it's not that Bob Taylor was against traditional guitar building. It's that he grew up learning traditional guitar building. He hung out in a hippie traditional guitar building shop, American Dream, and then later helped buy that very same company.
Let's hear a Taylor guitar. Let's bring up our guest, Erin. Again, big round of applause.
Yeah, this lady is amazing. Wait till you hear this.
So, what Taylor guitar do you have there?
So this is called an Academy 12, and it's actually a student model, but I like small guitars, and I can tell you the whole story. I grew up with a dad who really liked playing and also bought and sold old parlor guitars from the pre-war guitars, as they're called. So, I think originally he liked Martins a whole lot when I was a little kid. He liked Gibsons a whole lot. Nick Lucas was the holy grail guitar. And so I do have some of those old guitars in my collection. But talking about that bolt-on neck, that could be real useful, because what happened to me with my Tacoma was I was down in Memphis for the International Blues Challenge, and I was on stage, and I had set my guitar down not on a guitar stand. Don't do this. Just right on, leaned it up against something, and then I knocked it over. And when I picked it up, the neck was like this.
That's always fun.
And it was not a bolt-on, so when I eventually took it to my guitar fix guy, he said, I don't know about this, if it might not be fixable. That was what happened to me with my Tacoma, and so I became afraid to bring my Tacoma out all the time. I was looking for something that was as loud as my Tacoma, but that I could maybe go to any Guitar Center and get one, you know, so it would be replaceable. And we went to the guitar store in Memphis, and I played every acoustic guitar in the whole entire shop, including the expensive ones, the cheap ones, and this was the loudest guitar, and it was only $600. And I play the other Taylors too, the $2,000 ones, and this one won, and it's got so many cool things about it. It's loud, it's tight, small. The neck, like you said, the neck is amazing.
So there's 3 bolts that hold it on. There's 2 here and 1 there.
So a luthier could bolt it on, but I'm not about to bolt it on
I can
myself.
actually show you how to do it yourself.
I don't. If I wanted it.
I can show you.
So
it's
anyway,
easy, really, honest.
So let's hear what it sounds like. Things I love when I'm listening to you play that I love about it is how the tone is sort of unless you really wanted to, none of the notes stand out.
Right,
it's
right.
very even across the
That's
color.
very important for finger style.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
that's actually deliberate in Taylor's design, because they worked with a finger style guitar player when they came up with the grand concert. They worked quite extensively with him because he wanted a smaller body guitar and also to have the notes be even. They don't want the big booming bass,
Right.
and they don't also you'll notice that all the guitars that fingerstyle players like do not have scallop braces, because scallop bracing actually increases the bass response and lowers the treble response. Sorry, I'm getting geeked out here. You know.
We did a
Yeah, I
whole
know.
talk about it in the last episode where we went really geeky into scallop bracing, but yeah, so that's really interesting though. Can you play a little bit more and show like
Yeah, just keep playing.
just
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
playing and-
please.
And show like if you want the bass note to ring out, how you would do that. But in general, it just got such an even sound, so you're really in control of what is the lead note. Yeah.
It's called Piedmont blues, and it's a little bit like Travis picking, where you're always doing the bass line with your thumb, and then you're at the same time you're playing a melody. So you do the whole breadth of the guitar, but it's not like with a pick where you're really wringing everything out, and it's a quieter style. But I like to do this little pop to make because like the bass is not really huge on this kind of guitar, but I tend to make it heard by just popping it. I call it picking and popping.
You mentioned that you like that it's loud. What else do you like about that guitar and how it feels when you're playing it? And what?
I love the neck. I couldn't have imagined a more perfect neck for me as a woman, and I have slightly smaller hands. And when I originally started playing, I played a tiny little Martin from the 40s, like a 00 or something. Or triple. It's really teeny. And that neck was very small, but it was also very small this way. And it's good for small fingers. And but once your fingers grow up, an adult, like I am now, so the strings are like the width of it is perfect too, and but it's very small this way.
Right.
And a lot of guitars have that V shape, which is all right, but this is just so much more comfortable. But let me just. A PSA to Bob and the Taylor people. The best thing I've ever seen on any guitar is this little cutaway thing they have here, so that the guitar doesn't make that indentation. And I play gigs that are 2 and 3 hours long, so I don't want this thing digging into me.
Tim,
they don't have this on their more upgrade, the more expensive ones, and I think this should be on every guitar in the world. But it's a really cool invention. It's a little piece of wood, and I don't know how you think they did that.
I don't know. I haven't looked
wood
in there, but my guess is they thickened the kerfing right along there, and since the back and the sides are laminated on this, the top is solid wood, but these are laminate. So that also gives you a little bit more to work with as far as dimensional stability.
And it was an inexpensive guitar because of that, probably.
Yes.
And yet, the sound, it doesn't reflect it in the sound.
Laminate
The sound
mahogany is definitely more inexpensive than solid mahogany for sure.
The sound is fantastic. So.
It sounds great. Yeah, it's a really great sounding guitar.
Tell us, how did music come into your life?
I lived in Maryland growing up, and the suburbs of D.C. And in Washington, D.C., there was a scene for Piedmont blues, and there was Cephas and Wiggins and this guy named Archie Edwards, who had a barbershop. And after the barbershop hours were over, they would all get together and play this type of music, fingerstyle, lots of Mississippi John Hurt, which I'll be playing some later, and all kinds of these old 1930s 20s and 30s blues songs, Memphis Minnie, Tommy Johnson, all kinds of cool stuff. So I grew up hearing that and thinking, well, first of all, I thought that was blues. Like, if you went to Baltimore, blues, it was electric, Yeah. I got another Taylor so that I could have it set up for open G and playing with a slide, so it's slightly higher. Actually, I didn't want to play guitar because I thought, well, I don't want to be just like my dad, so I played the classical flute, and I tried to be different. But when I got to be a few years older in high school, there was a boy that I liked, and he knew all the words to Alice's Restaurant, if you're familiar.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, and he didn't know how to play guitar, so I said, I'm going to play guitar and impress him. And I went home, Dad, teach me that song. And Dad, Neil Harpe, hi, Dad, out there. He said, that's too hard. You're not going to be able to learn it. And I learned it in one week. I was able to kind of, get the hang of the bass.
You really did want to impress that boy, didn't you?
I did. But then I forgot all about him, and I honed in on the guitar after that.
You found your real love.
Yes, I did.
That's awesome.
Oh boy.
I never found out. But. This was high school.
How do you evolve into Piedmont style playing and playing the blues?
It was really convenient. My dad was my, in the other room. So if he would teach me a song, and then I would forget it, and then I'd be, hey, Dad, can you come back here and tell me again? And so I did that until I learned a whole bunch of songs, and then eventually moved out. I had some of his records and stuff, so I would sit there and take the record, listen over and over again, or on tape, rewind, and I worked on that for a good many years, and then ended up meeting my husband Jim, and he wanted to start an electric band, so we started a band doing Afro pop and ska. That's a whole nother thing. I learned about this whole hybrid picking, where you take a pick and you do both finger picking and I can show you a little bit of that.
So when while you're getting your pick out, when you were in Kenya, and you would hear people playing the kora and some of that African music, did you hear a connection to? Yeah, there you go. Did you feel a connection to what you were already listening to, hearing the sort of the roots of it in Africa?
Not in, if I had been in West Africa, I think I would have more. But since I was in Kenya, there was more like high life, and it was really interesting. It was like they took the thumb piano and they translated that into guitar, and they would have two electric guitars going in, and so I don't know what Phil Wiggins, who was one of the best harmonica players ever, played with Cephas and Wiggins, and he told me this kind of music. When he grew up, his family was playing this music for generations. So he said it's dance music. That's what it is. Even though you're playing acoustic and it's finger style and people were dancing. That was back in the day, back in the early 1900s. It was dance music. So when I heard that African, that is what, to me, the beat, the rhythm, the danceability, the happiness.
Yeah.
And when I played for African people, I played the Piedmont music for them, and they just started laughing, like just such joy that they were just like, they were like, nah, what is that?
Yeah.
Instead of playing with all my fingers, you pick, but then you kind of move it down. Instead of picking the melody with these two fingers, you hold your pick with your thumb, and then you have to bring in these fingers. So different people use different amounts of. Some people do chicken picking, where it's just two fingers, but. So here's a little bit of a song that I wrote with this style. Just switch over to picking.
And you just hear the joy and love in that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Something I've always preferred, that was another thing I liked about this guitar, is I like a guitar that has 14 frets to the body. So a lot of the older guitars, you have to look really hard to find like an old Gibson like that, or a National. Even my National has that, and it's just so that you can use your capo. And I have this nice little built-in capo here. Memphis Minnie, for instance, plays everything in open G. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. And the way she gets different sounds is she uses the capo, and she'll capo at all different places and play in different keys. So I like to do the same thing.
One of the things I noticed when you just played, which it's another quality of a Taylor guitar. When you put the capo on and you're playing up higher, it doesn't, the tone doesn't change and start to sound thin or fall apart. It still sounds rich, like an acoustic guitar. It should. What happens if you go up a little bit higher with the capo, and just show everybody just a little bit of what the tone is like, even if you're playing way up the neck? Yes. See, it just still sounds like an acoustic.
It's all still there.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Tim,
Thank you.
Is there anything that you want to share with everybody before we end that we haven't shared about the Taylor guitar that you think is just the last thing to leave people with?
Oh.
Oh, well, I would like to give a shout out to my little thing, my request from, because I want to send this to the Taylor company, just because I want to tell them how much I love Taylors, how I play them all the time, and how if they would like to make me my particular model, I have in mind something. And
All right. Let's,
I want. Can I?
let's
if
get,
I
let's
tell-
get Bob on the phone.
Yeah.
Let's get him
So
on the phone.
I would love just like this, except another 3/4 of an inch deeper, like the same depth. The Nick Lucas, the
okay.
Holy Grail
Yeah.
guitar
Right.
from my dad. And also, I would like a sunburst on one. But this is beautiful. I like how it's aged. I have used a pick on it, and anyway.
It was not being afraid to, take a different way to skin the cat, so to speak. And I think that's what made Taylor what they are and what they've become, and the reason that you can put a capo on the 6th or 7th fret of the Taylor, and
Yeah.
it sounds every bit as it does in its open tuning, its open string tuning.
Yeah.
And
Sounds like they
that's because they thought about it.
They embrace technology, but in a very artistic, artful way.
Absolutely, that's it. You summed it up right there. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I love it.
all right, so give Erin a big round of applause.
You're all in for a real treat when you hear these guys play.
Thank
It's
you.
fantastic.
Once again, Just Guitars Live. You can check us out online on YouTube.
Thank you so much.
And sign up on our mailing list, which will be a little piece of paper sitting in the back. And we're here the
We're
third
high-tech.
Thursday of every month. Thank you, Jamie, for letting us do this. It is such a joy to be able to share our love and geekiness of guitars.
I know.
Is there
These
any-
guys are so great, aren't they? Give it up.
Oh, thank you.
So, thank you
We
very
are
much.
Just
Thanks
We'll
for
see
having
you
me.
next
Guitars.
next month. Just Guitars Live.
And this was the show called Just Guitars. That's what it's called, Just Guitars. It ain't about the tuba or sitar. That's why it's called Just Guitars.